Hello, and welcome to the Knitting in the Hospital Wing podcast. My name is Maggie KuusiKnits, and I am a knitter, sewist, and general crafter living here in Denver, Colorado. You can find me on Ravelry at KuusiKnits and on Instagram at maggie.coos. You guys, it has been a fantastic winter. Right now you can see from the backdrop that I am back at my home in Denver. I've been spending most of the winter up in Steamboat, which is a small ski resort town in northwest Colorado where I grew up. And it has been one of the best winters ever. It has just been snowing like crazy. It's literally been a powder day almost every day. I'm having so much fun skiing. In the last week, I did have one of the most crazy falls that I've ever had. I was skiing some steep trees in Steamboat, went off a jump. When I landed, I buried the tips of my skis and I just had a full-on cartwheel yard sale fall where there was so much powder. There was 13 inches of powder, so it took me 5 minutes to just find my skis again because they were just absolutely buried. And I had to feel around under the snow to try to find them, but I was fine. I have a little bit of a bruise, but other than that, I have a bruise on my left arm and my dignity is a little bit bruised, but other than that, I'm just fine. But yeah, it has been just so much fun skiing. I am up to about 24 days this season, which is a lot more than I've gotten in the last several seasons. And I'm going to be spending the rest of January and most of early February up in Steamboat as well. So this is the last little stretch that I'll be in Denver, and then I'm heading up to the mountains sort of for the rest of the winter. Other than that, nothing really big to talk about. My life has been just pretty boring, which to be honest is really nice. I think when you're younger, you want things to be constantly happening and things to constantly be changing. And then when you get older, you realize that being a little bit bored is actually really nice and means that things are just moving along and your life is easy and straightforward. And so I've been really enjoying the quiet solitude of the mountains. However, I am in Denver right now, and it is 50 degrees and sunny today in Denver, which it is very common for Denver to have big swings in weather where you'll have it snow a foot and then the next 1 week and be really snowy and cold 1 week, and then the next week it's really warm and beautiful. And so it's been really nice to get a little bit of a reprieve from the really cold, harsh weathers up in Steamboat to come down here and really enjoy the beautiful weather that we're having. But yeah, nothing else to report. So I'm just going to move right on to finished objects. And what am I wearing? So, this is the Diagon Alley Jumper by Fabel Knitwear, and it is knit in Woolberry Fibre Co. in the Berry DK, which is 100% superwash merino in the caramel mocha colorway. So this was a gift from Sean for Christmas. He got it at Fancy Tiger Crafts, and he bought the yarn and then the pattern to go with it as well. It was such an enjoyable knit. I don't know what it was exactly. I just knit this literally in a week. I just could not set it down, and I think it was a couple of things. The sweater itself is so beautiful and so easy to knit, but has just these really lovely details that make it a little bit more interesting. Hey Shawnee, you wanna come say hi?
Hello.
My husband is here. I've gotten used to just podcasting in front of him anyway. Oh.
Hello, world.
Yeah, I'm, my dignity is already almost gone anyway, so I just don't mind talking to myself in front of my husband because he married me, so he's stuck with me now. Anyway, this sweater pattern is fantastic because it is so elegant and so simple, but has these really beautiful details. And I find that in the collar, the folded collar, the slightly puffed sleeves. I really like the twisted rib that is on the sleeves and the hem. All of that is just so beautiful. And then the fact that you have this large swath of stockinette with the raglan that really shows off this really beautifully made and beautifully hand-dyed yarn. I think that it is just one of the best sweaters for showing off hand-dyed yarn because it is simple but has those delicate details. So yeah, let me just show it off. So this is the folded collar. You can see it here. I sewed it down this morning and it's still really stretchy with the way I sewed it, which was really nice. You can see these puff sleeves. They're, you know, just like a subtle puff shoulder, but adds a little bit of a like really beautiful, delicate sort of vintage detail. And then you have the twisted rib, and it is tight fitting and slightly cropped. So yeah, you can see it there. Super beautiful. I think that the only change that I made to this sweater was that I knit it maybe an inch longer, and that is just because I'm very tall for a woman. Even though my torso is, most of my height comes from my legs. But yeah, I really, really loved it. I think that the sweater pattern itself would be, trying to think. I think that it would be appropriate for beginners because it is a lot of stockinette and it's a simple raglan with some other small details. But I don't think it would be the best for your first pattern ever. And the only reason I say that is nothing against the pattern, but it's just that the designer of this pattern is Norwegian, and Scandinavian knitters are just way more experienced than American knitters. And so they don't need the level of detail that we often require when we are especially learning to knit. Because for them, it's something that they've learned in school. It's a huge part of their culture. Everybody in their family knits. They've been knitting for a long time. So it's just something that's like ingrained in them. So for that reason, I think that if you are a beginner, but you have knit a sweater before, especially if you've knit a raglan before, then you should absolutely try to knit this sweater. It is fantastic. It's a lot easier than it looks. This puffed shoulder is a lot more straightforward than I thought, but I wouldn't do it as your first sweater unless you have a friend who is going to be there to sort of help guide you through the sweater. So maybe as like a knit along or something like that. I really love it. I think that it is going to be a huge staple in my winter wardrobe and something that I reach for all the time. I really like it with like high-waisted pants or high-waisted skirt or something like that. It is gorgeous. I love it. I'm waxing poetically. I think the other thing that I really like it, maybe not so poetically, I don't know. Anyway, the other thing that I really love about it is that it's knit from the bottom up. What? Why? I don't know. I think that like after knitting this, I am kind of a convert. Top-down sweaters are nice in theory because in theory you can try them on as you go, blah, blah, blah. But I think that sleeves suck so much because you are knitting sweaters top down. And so when you're knitting sleeves, you're like constantly having to manage the sweater. Where if you knit bottom up, the sleeve is just a tube and it just goes so fast. I mean, you can knit a sweater sleeve in just a couple of hours if you just like commit to it. Anyway, I'm a convert. I want to knit literally all of her patterns. I love them all. I have already cast on another one, which I'll talk about in my whips. And I also have another one that I'm planning that I'll talk about later for a graduation outfit that I want to make. I want to make a dress and a cardigan to wear to my graduation because I just think that it'd be really special to have that day be something where I kind of bring together the two sides of my life, the sort of crafting, outdoorsy side with the fabrics and the type of dress that I wear, and then the medicine. So yeah, the Diagon Alley jumper, so magical, so beautiful. I am putting it in the Magical Places Cal. It's beautiful. I love it. I'm absolutely obsessed. I wouldn't be surprised if I make another one because it's awesome. And it's a really good way to show off like beautiful, beautiful yarn that you have. So yeah, really love it. So with that, I'll just move on to some works in progress. So the first one, I have it over here, sorry, is My simple socks that I'm making for Sean. So Sean and I went and saw Little Women. I mean, honestly, like Timothée Chalamet, Saoirse Ronan, Emma Watson. Need I say more? They're like, it was amazing. It was so good. I loved it. But anyway, I was knitting on Sean's socks, so I finished this, and actually all I have to do is Kitchener stitch this together, and then this sock will be totally done. His feet are humongous. This is a 72 stitch on a 2.25 millimeter needle. I did a heel flap and gusset with some contrasting yarn that I used for the heel and the cuff. And this is in the MustStash yarns. There's some chocolate on here. That's what I get for bringing it to a movie theater, huh? Anyway, this is on MustStash yarns in the Anakin colorway. So this is sort of showing the light side and dark side of Anakin Skywalker, who obviously becomes Darth Vader. Let's just say that Harry Potter is not the only fandom that I really enjoy. But I cast on the second one just before we went and saw the movie and got this far while I was in the movie. Honestly, I was knitting away, but I was so enthralled with the movie and the performance that I found it a little bit of a challenge to actually knit on this, but I really loved it. I am calling these my Ben Solo socks, but I am not going to go into any more information about that until I am finished with these, and then I will explain a little bit more about why I decided to name them that. The reason that I'm not going into it is because I don't want to spoil it for anybody. So I want to make sure that for people who have not seen the movie, the last Star Wars movie yet, that they have time to see that. And yeah. Anyway, this is sort of my on-the-go knitting, so it's honestly not something that I bring to very many places, but is something that I've really been enjoying working on when I'm sort of shopping or, out on the town. The other thing that I've been working on is the Dreamin' Slowly hat. So this is my hat so far. This is by Layla and the Qing Fibre company. And this is knit out of a Madeline Tosh. I think it was the Red Woman in the Madeline Tosh DK. This is just something that I had in my stash. And then some red mohair held double. So you can see the red mohair, I showed in my last podcast, is a lot brighter than this. And so it makes this a perfect red hat. The only downfall is that I have run out of mohair. You can see the end. So I do have to buy another ball of red mohair, but I'm finding it kind of annoying because I am already in the decreases, so it's only going to be like 8 rows, and each of those rows are getting shorter and shorter. So this is being put on hold for a little while until I decide exactly what I want to do with that, because I'm going to have a lot of leftover red mohair, and I just don't know exactly what I will use it for if I buy it. But I also don't want to frog this because it is almost entirely knit, and frogging mohair is a disaster. So this is just taking a little bit of a rest. But I really love this pattern. It's honestly my favorite hat pattern right now. You can wear it unfolded and have it be slouchy and super cute, or you can fold it up and have it be more of like a hipster hat, which I have been really enjoying the hipster hat craze right now. I feel like it lets my head be warm without like messing up my hair, which is so vain, but fuck it, I'm vain. And then also, it makes it so that you can still wear it inside and things like that. And if you get hot, you can fold it down. Like, it's not as if it's like permanently like that. If you get cold, you can fold it down. It's not like permanently tacked up there. So anyway. And then on here, I have a Simply Serving Progress Keeper, which is Skelegro. That was one of the things that my mom got me for Christmas. She got me a ton of them, and I am loving them. So yeah. Then I have 2 other really exciting works in progress. So the first one I have in my Antler and Acorn squirrel bag, which squirrels are one of my favorite animals, so I do really love this bag. But in here, I have the Rowena jumper, also by Fabel Knitwear, and I will pull it up. on my phone really fast just so I can show you what it looks like. I am knitting it out of, just give me 1 second, sorry, I'm a horrible person. Okay, I am knitting it out of the Fibre Company Acadia, which is a rustic blend of silk noil, baby alpaca, and merino wool. So this is a DK weight, which has 60% wool, 20% alpaca, and 20% silk. This yarn is a dream. Again, with Fabel Knitwear, like, her patterns are so simple and so elegant and just have the ability to show off this yarn that is so beautiful and just really let the yarn speak for itself. So I'll show this up a little bit closer. This is a really beautiful chartreuse color. You can see the little like neps of silk in here, and it has this beautiful silk sort of shine to it. Oh my God, that's like a perfect color representation. It is a beautiful color. And I can't pull this up, but essentially what it is a raglan where the body is knit in 1x1 rib, the sleeves are knit in stockinette. It has a bit of a, like, the collar is a little bit higher, so a bit of a turtleneck type collar. But the it has this beautiful like eyelet opening. Oh, it's so good. So anyway, and it's bottom up again, so I am just this far. So I cast this on the day before yesterday, and I've just been knitting away. You can see my little Hedwig progress keeper there, which is also by Simply Serving, and it is knitting up so beautifully. This yarn is absolutely insane. Let me see it in the ball. And then, while I was at an interview in Rochester, New York, I stopped into one of their local yarn shops and got this beautiful vintage button to be the button that closes it in the back. I mean, shut up. It's so cute. It's so pretty. I don't even know what it's made out of. It almost looks like a shell on the back. Anyway, shell, glass, something like that. But so that's going to be the button that closes the funnel neck or turtleneck that's in the back. So yeah, I'm just plugging away at this. Again, I love bottom-up sweaters. I'm a total convert. I think I'll probably knit it exactly to pattern, except for, and I knit a size medium, and I have a 36-inch bust. I'll probably knit it exactly to pattern, but just add a little bit of length to it. And then the last work in progress that I wanted to talk about is my Koivua sweater by Caitlin Hunter. And I have cast off the body and knit a sleeve. I love it! So this is a sweater pattern by, and I forgot to mention what I'm calling this. I am calling this sweater, so the Rowena sweater, even though it's Rowena, so it's already named after Harry Potter, I'm trying to decide, but this reminds me so much of a house elf that I'm thinking of calling it SPEW, or maybe something about Kreacher, because I think Kreacher is such an interesting character, and he doesn't get any resolution in the movies, and I kind of want to talk about Kreacher, so I don't know, I might name it Kreacher, but we'll see. SPEW, Kreacher, I haven't decided yet. But anyway, back to the Koivua sweater. I am calling this Ilops Owl Emporium because of the feathers. And because I was just reading about Diagon Alley this week, and it just got me really excited about Diagon Alley. So I love this sweater. This is, like I said, designed by Caitlin Hunter of Boylan Knitworks. And it is amazing. It is an all-over colorwork sweater that has some pearl stitch patterning in it as well. And the sleeve was such a dream to knit. So I will say that I did change this sleeve a little bit. So in the pattern, this is supposed to be smaller and then get bigger for this and then get bigger and then come down to make a balloon sleeve. However, I didn't really like the transition from this motif to this in the original sweater pattern because I felt like this part looked like it was really tight on everybody's arms, and then it like balloons out from there, so it felt like it ballooned out in a really sort of weird way. So what I did is I added stitches just before I started this colorwork motif. So I picked up 2 extra stitches and then added I think 5 extra stitches. Whatever the colorwork motif is, I made it so that there was 1 extra colorwork repeat. And then from there, I just had to add about 5 more stitches. So I increased after this 5 more stitches before I started the texture pattern. And then I just kept the pattern normally from there. But that way I felt like the sleeve itself just started larger and there was a less extreme change from here to here, because it was like, instead of increasing 11 stitches, I only increased 5 stitches, so it was a little bit more broad. I have to say I like it a lot better. I just think that it looks a little bit more intentional. But I also understand why Caitlin Hunter didn't do that, because it means that you have to like evenly increase here instead of like being very obvious how you increase. And honestly, I think that Fabel Knitwear's pattern writing has helped me with that, because she'll just say like, in the next round, evenly increase 11 stitches or something like that. And you just have to do the math and find out how often you should be increasing. And so I got really comfortable with writing my own, with altering patterns to what I wanted by knitting her patterns, and has already helped me. So love it. Can't say enough about her. She's probably my favorite designer right now. Anyway, I also love Caitlin Hunter. And then the other thing that I did is I wanted it to be more obvious, and I have very thin wrists, especially for how big of a human being I am, like how tall I am and just how big like my muscle structure is. And so I decreased here down to the extra small cuff size, and it is perfect. Like my hand fits in perfectly, but it really does like kind of grasp onto my hand. And then I also added, or onto my wrist, and then I also added one more texture pattern. So yeah, 1 more colorwork motif, increased slightly less here, added 1 extra texture pattern, increased normally from here to here, then decreased down to the extra small size, even though I was knitting the medium size. And that's it. This yarn I've already talked about, but it is knit out of yarn. So I think this one is Blue Sky Fibers, Shibui Silk Cloud, and then a local yak company to the valley in which I grew up. I really love it. I think that I'll probably finish it in the next week or so. I do kind of want a break just because I knit this entire thing in one day, and it was a lot of knitting in the round. And again, I have realized why people really, really love bottom-up sweaters, because it's just so much easier to knit the arms. It's crazy. Or the sleeves, I guess. But yeah, no acquisitions this week. Not planning on having any acquisitions in the next several months. I do want to knit a couple of things from, so for my graduation, I want to buy this really beautiful floral fabric from Fancy Tiger. It's kind of a off-white color that has dark blue and dark green and white flowers and snakes and like butterflies and things like that. And then with it, I want to knit a navy blue. I'm definitely going to pronounce this wrong, but it's the Sylphide jacket by Fabel Knitwear. It is this beautiful, it's this beautiful jacket with huge sleeves, and then the back has this really amazing, the back and the sleeves have this really amazing bluebell pattern. And I love the sleeves. I think this will be perfect for graduation because it kind of mirrors the graduation gown sleeves. So I want to knit that in a really beautiful navy blue yarn that I have already picked out, but I'm just going to wait, I think I'll probably buy the yarn and the fabric for that on match day, because match day is March 20th and we don't graduate until May 22nd. And so that will give me 2 pretty much 2 full months to knit the sweater and knit the cardigan and make the dress. So I think that's more than enough time. But yeah, well, thank you so much for joining me today. If you don't want to hear any Harry Potter talk, then I will let you go. But I hope everyone is enjoying the weather wherever they are. I can honestly say I'm looking out my window and there's just been this storm cloud moving across. So it looks like it might actually rain, which Colorado weather is bizarre. If you've never lived here before, you would have no idea how bizarre it is. But yeah, it's been so nice catching up, and I hope everybody is happy and healthy, and if not, that they have a good support system to help them if they're having a hard time. So, bye! All right, and if you have decided to stick around for some Harry Potter talk, I am going to be reading from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. I wanted to just read the journey that Harry has into Diagon Alley, and sort of the first time that he realizes he's famous, and the first time he sees magic all around him and is surrounded by his own type of people, and just the magic that he sees there. I think it's a really special time and a really interesting part of the series, and I'm just going to read it, and then if I have time before I have to leave, I'll sort of talk about it a little bit as well. So this is Chapter 5, Diagon Alley, in my Diagon Alley jumper. So excited. Okay. People stared more than ever on the train. Hagrid took up 2 seats and sat knitting what looked like a canary yellow circus tent. "Still got your letter, Harry?" he asked as he counted stitches. Harry took the parchment envelope out of his pocket. "Good," said Hagrid. "There's a list there of everything you need." Harry unfolded a second piece of paper he hadn't noticed the night before and read, "Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Uniform. First-year students will require 3 sets of plain work robes, black, 1 plain pointed hat, black, for day wear, 1 pair of protective gloves, dragon hide or similar, 1 winter cloak, black, silver fastenings. Please note that all people's clothing should carry name tags. Course books. All students should have a copy of each of the following: The Standard Book of Spells, Grade 1 by Miranda Goshawk, A History of Magic by Bathilda Bagshot, Magical Theory by Aldebert Waffling, A Beginner's Guide to Transfiguration by Emmerich Switch, 1000 Magical Herbs and Fungi by Philida Spore, Magical Draughts and Potions by Arsenius Jigger, Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them by Newt Scamander, The Dark Forces, A Guide to Self-Protection by Quentin Trimble. Other equipment: 1 wand, 1 cauldron, pewter, standard size 2, 1 set glass or crystal phials, 1 telescope, 1 set brass scales. Students may also bring an owl, or a cat, or a toad. Parents are reminded that first years are not allowed their own broomsticks. "Can we buy all this in London?" Harry wondered aloud. "If you know where to go," said Hagrid. Harry had never been to London before. Although Hagrid seemed to know where he was going, he was obviously not used to getting there in an ordinary way. He got stuck in the ticket barrier on the Underground and complained loudly that the seats were too small and the trains too slow. "I don't know how Muggles manage without magic," he said, as they climbed a broken-down escalator that led up to a bustling road lined with shops. Hagrid was so huge that he parsed the crowd easily. All Harry had to do was keep close behind. They passed bookshops and music stores, hamburger restaurants and cinemas, but nowhere that looked as if it could sell you a magic wand. This was just an ordinary street full of ordinary people. Could there really be piles of wizard gold buried miles beneath them? Were there really shops that sold spellbooks and broomsticks? Might this not all be some huge joke the Dursleys had cooked up? If Harry hadn't known that the Dursleys had no sense of humor, he might have thought so. Yet somehow, even though everything Hagrid told him so far was unbelievable, Harry couldn't help trusting him. "This is it," said Hagrid, coming to a halt. "The Leaky Cauldron. It's a famous place." It was a tiny, grubby-looking pub. If Hagrid hadn't pointed it out, Harry wouldn't have noticed it was there. The people hurrying by didn't glance at it. Their eyes slid from the big bookshop on one side to the record shop on the other, as if they couldn't see the leaky cauldron at all. In fact, Harry had the most peculiar feeling that only he and Hagrid could see it. Before he could mention this, Hagrid had steered him inside. For a famous place, it was very dark and shabby. A few old women were sitting in a corner drinking tiny glasses of sherry. One of them was smoking a long pipe. A little man in a top hat was walking to the old bartender, who was quite bald and looked like a toothless walnut. The low buzz of chatter stopped when they walked in. Everyone seemed to know Hagrid. They waved and smiled at him, and the bartender reached for a glass, saying, "The usual, Hagrid." "Can't, Tom. I'm on Hogwarts business," said Hagrid, clapping his great hand on Harry's shoulder and making Harry's knees buckle. "Good Lord," said the bartender, peering at Harry. Can this be?" The leaky cauldron had suddenly gone completely still and silent. "Bless my soul," whispered the old bartender. "Harry Potter. What an honor." He hurried over from behind the bar, rushed toward Harry, and seized his hand, tears in his eyes. "Welcome back, Mr. Potter, welcome back." Harry didn't know what to say. Everyone was looking at him. The old woman with the pipe was puffing on it without realizing it had gone out. Hagrid was beaming. Then there was a great scraping of chairs, and the next moment Harry found himself shaking hands with everyone in the leaky cauldron. "Doris Crockford, Mr. Potter, can't believe I'm meeting you at last. So proud, Mr. Potter, I'm just so proud. Always wanted to shake your hand, I'm all of a flutter. Delighted, Mr. Potter, can't tell you, Diggle's the name, Diddylus Diggle." "I've seen you before," said Harry, as Diddylus Diggle top hat fell off in his excitement. "You bowed to me once in a shop." "He remembers," cried Daedalus Diggle, looking around at everyone. "Did you hear that? He remembers me." Harry shook hands again and again. Doris Crockford kept coming back for more. A pale young man made his way forward very nervously. One of his eyes was twitching. "Professor Quirrell," said Hagrid. "Harry, Professor Quirrell will be one of your teachers at Hogwarts." "Potter," stammered Professor Quirrell, grasping Harry's hand. "Can't tell you how pleased I am to meet you." "What sort of magic do you teach, Professor Quirrell?" Defense against the dark arts," muttered Professor Quirrell, as though he'd rather not think about it. Not that you need it, eh, Potter?" He laughed nervously. "You'll be getting all your equipment, I suppose. I've got to pick up a new book on vampires myself." He looked terrified at the very thought, but the others wouldn't let Professor Quirrell keep Harry to himself. It took about 10 minutes to get away from them all. At last, Hagrid managed to make himself heard over the babble. "Must go on. Lots to buy. Come on, Harry." Doris Crockford shook Harry's hand one last time, and Hagrid led him through the bar out into a small walled courtyard, where there was nothing but a trash can and a few weeds. Hagrid grinned at Harry. "Told you, didn't I? Told you was famous. Even Professor Quirrell was tremblin' to meet you. Remember you, he usually trembles." "Is he always that nervous?" "Oh yeah, poor bloke. Brilliant mind. Was fine while he was studying out of books, but then he took a year off to get some first-hand experience. They say he met vampires in the Black Forest, and there was a nasty bit of old trouble with a hag. Never been the same since. Scared of the students, scared of his own subject. Now where's me umbrella?" "Vampires? Hags?" Harry's head was swimming. Hagrid, meanwhile, was counting bricks in the wall above the trash can. 3 up, 2 across, he muttered. "Right, stand back, Harry." He tapped the wall 3 times with the point of his umbrella. The brick he had touched quivered. It wriggled. In the middle, a small hole appeared. It grew wider and wider. A second later, they were facing an archway large enough even for Hagrid, an archway onto a cobbled street that twisted and turned out of sight. "Welcome," said Hagrid, "to Diagon Alley." He grinned at Harry's amazement. They stepped through the archway. Harry looked quickly over his shoulder and saw the archway shrink instantly back into solid wall. The sun shone brightly on a stack of cauldrons outside the nearest shop. "Cauldrons, all sizes, copper, brass, pewter, silver, self-striping, collapsible," said a sign hanging over them. "Yeah, you'll be needing one," said Hagrid, "but we gotta get your money first." Harry wished he had about 8 more eyes. He turned his head in every direction as they walked up the street, trying to look at everything at once. The shops, the things outside them, the people doing their shopping. A plump woman outside an apothecary was shaking her head as they passed, saying, "Dragon liver, 16 sickles an ounce. They're mad." A low, soft hooting came from a dark shop with a sign saying Ilop's Owl Emporium. Tawny, Screech, Barn, Brown, and Snowy. Several boys of about Harry's age had their noses pressed against a window with broomsticks in it. "Look," Harry heard one of them say, "the new Nimbus 2000, fastest ever." There were shops selling robes, shops selling telescopes, and strange silver instruments Harry had never seen before. Windows stacked with barrels of bat spleens and eel's eyes, tottering piles of spell books, quills, and rolls of parchment, potion bottles, globs of moon. "Gringotts," said Hagrid. They had reached a snowy white building that towered over the other little shops. Standing beside its burnished bronze doors, wearing a uniform of scarlet and gold, was, "Yeah, that's a goblin," said Hagrid quietly as they walked up the white stone steps toward him. The goblin was about a head shorter than Harry. He had a swarthy, clever face and a pointed beard, and Harry noticed very long fingers and feet. He bowed as they walked inside. Now they were facing a second pair of doors, silver this time, with words engraved upon them. "Enter, stranger, but take heed of what awaits the sin of greed. For those who take but do not earn must pay most dearly in their turn. So if you seek beneath our floors a treasure that was never yours, thief, you have been warned, beware of finding more than treasure there." Oh, it's so good. Oh my god. So yeah, obviously they just keep going. I've already talked about his trip to Ollivanders, which is a really important part, but he also meets Draco Malfoy when he's getting his robes fitted. I mean, it is just so, so beautiful. I think I really loved this because it's the first time, it's sort of that you and Harry together are experiencing the magical world together. You know, I love how he describes how they're in London and there's just normal people in normal shops. It's a normal street. Yet underneath, there's something magical there. And you can find magic no matter where you are, no matter what you're doing. And it's all around us. I think that's why Harry Potter became so famous, is it was a universe within ours. It's something that is there just beneath the surface, and if you're special enough, you can see it. I think that's a metaphor for life, really. You know, there are special moments and magical things that happen to us all the time if you just take the moment to notice that they're there. Anyway, so, and it's also, I think, a really special time, you know, that line that Hagrid has where he says, "Told you was famous." It's just so interesting, you know. He is discovering that he's famous. It's not something like Daenerys Targaryen, where she was born knowing she was special and different, you know. It's kind of like, in a way, it's kind of like Jon Snow or Harry Potter. They are born into nothing, and they learn of their gifts as they age and as they mature. And they also are humble and, you know, unsure about themselves. There are times when Harry is just so unsure, especially when he meets Draco later in this chapter, and he realizes, you know, that he wasn't raised in a magical family, that he doesn't already know about spells and about magic and about this world. Everything is so new to him. And that makes him question, you know, if he really is the chosen one, and if he really is as strong and as special as everyone thinks, and that makes him who he is. I think that he would not be as good a character if he was raised in the magical world and he did know that he was famous, you know? Other things that are really important in this little part of the book is that he is able to shake Quirrell's hand. So at this point, Quirrell is in the employ, shall we say, of Moldy Voldy, of Lord Voldemort. However, Voldemort has not possessed his body yet. That happens later on when he fails to retrieve the Philosopher's Stone or the Sorcerer's Stone, and makes a couple of other mistakes as well. That is when the Dark Lord actually becomes part of Quirrell and possesses his body, but at this point, the Dark Lord is not part of him. And so at this point, Quirrell actually can shake Harry's hand. He can touch him. He doesn't get those burns and the rash from him when they touch, which I just think is such an interesting small detail. Also, the beautiful introduction of the books that they have to read and how, for instance, Bathilda Backshot's A History of Magic becomes so important later in the book. Rest in peace, Bathilda. But yeah, it's just so beautiful. And the way that the wall just opens up and an archway forms and they walk through it and then it turns to solid wall behind them. Just the magic in the description of them walking around and her sort of setting the scene by describing how the storefronts are set up and how the people are muttering to themselves about ridiculous pricing on something that sounds so crazy. It's just the way that she built this world was so beautiful and so special and something that you don't get very often in any works of art. The story that really allows you to believe that this world exists. It is such a special thing and such a beautiful thing, and I am so thankful that she decided to share it with the world and created this wonderful harmony of characters. It's so good. So, yeah. Diagon Alley Jumper, reading from Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. So I'll try to get another one up in the next week or so. But yeah,